Alright, you see this video? Everything in it is at my command. Check this out. Pizza. Crown. Screen transition. So last time we took a deep dive into the quote-unquote bad guy. The sad, sympathetic saps who were shunned by their respective societies, forced into the role of antagonist, and given more cold shoulders than a shirtless hockey rink. Friendless, choiceless, 90% of the time hairless. Cause, you know, life wasn't hard enough for them already. But in the end, they managed to save the day, prove their worth, and receive the respect they rightfully deserve. Aw yeah. But today we're gonna tackle the complete opposite type of character. The jerk protagonist. The guy who seemingly has it all because life has been handing him everything on a silver platter for years. They've got star-studded fame, dashing good looks, more choices in life than a Ben & Jerry's, and enough cash to buy a pint of every single one. Everyone just thinks they're the greatest thing ever. And as a result, they become egotistical, self-centered, and completely disinterested in the well-being of others. Not evil per se, just a big old... Yeah, exactly. But then one day, a major event happens that throws a massive wrench into their usually perfect life, and they're thrust into a situation that no amount of money or charm or awesome musical numbers can fix. This leads to them becoming a much more humble individual, forming a bunch of solid relationships, and ending up much happier than they've ever been. Personally, I really like this trope. It's not only fun to see a spoiled rich guy get cut down to size and meet some colorful characters that he'll eventually call friends, but it also serves as a cautionary tale to anyone who might get rich, famous, or powerful one day. No matter how many fans you have or how big your bank account gets, never lose touch with your humanity. I may sound like a Hallmark movie, but what's fact is fact. The things that really make a life worth living are the people you spend it with. The ones who were there for you in the past, enjoy your company in the present, and will keep your legacy alive far into the future. The sweetest fruits on the tree of life really do taste the best when you share them with others. So don't just rip one off the branch and take a bite, bake them into a pie and serve it to the masses. And whether your pie tin is aluminum foil or solid gold, it'll still result in a bunch of happy memories. But with all that said, which of our three combatants today is the most memorable jerk protagonist? Who was the most entertaining before their turn? Who had the most enjoyable and well-paced journey? And whose ultimate fate felt the most deserved? Well, it's time to pull the imported rug out from under all their feet and see who had the most satisfying fall. As always, these are just my opinions, and if you have a personal favorite pompous protag or just thoughts on these movies in general, feel free to leave a comment below. But for now, it's Disney versus Pixar versus Warner Brothers Animation in the ultimate joust of jerks. Who shall receive this match's title belt? Let's find out. Are you guys ready to discuss one of the funniest Disney movies of all time? Well, I'm not. I'm ready to discuss one of the funniest movies of all time, period. Oh, sweet golden attire of the Incan Empire. I freaking love this movie. I don't care what the box office says. I don't care what the Disney higher-ups think. This movie is a gosh dang Disney classic. It's got a hilarious script that is just packed with iconic quotes, pitch-perfect casting, a perfect antagonist duo, beautiful designs and artwork, lovable protagonists, and even some really powerful scenes. The crew behind this movie understood that the key to making an effective comedy isn't just rapid-fire jokes, but having those jokes be delivered by characters that we know and care about. Character-based comedy will always be king, where you have memorable personalities bouncing off each other, leading to some huge laughs. Throw in some extra essentials like slapstick, absurdism, fourth wall gags, and no dated references aside from a little bit of slang, and you have a movie as timeless and deserving of praise as Mesoamerican history itself. I just wish Disney gave this film as much attention as its other big boys. Sure, it got a direct-to-video sequel and an amazing Disney Channel show, but there was barely any Disneyland rep, which is criminal given how much potential it could have had. Heck, I don't even think they make merch for it nowadays. Here, let me check. Okay, all I could find on Shop Disney is 2 t-shirts, a few figures, an Yzma statue, and 2 DVDs.
Is this really the best you could do?
Okay, let's focus on the reason we're here. Our jerk of the hour. What's his name? Kuzco! Oh yeah, thanks. Kuzco, the most pompous protag in the Disney canon. And also one of the most likable. Yeah, I don't think it's controversial to say that while our beloved prince started off as a total butt, he was extremely entertaining throughout the whole movie. His unrelenting, full of himself nature mixed with his boatloads of charisma and charm, as well as David Spade's awesome performance, makes for an extremely fun to watch character. And from the start of the movie, you totally understand why he's like this. As Tom Jones put it, he was born and raised to rule. From birth, he was given anything he could ever want or need 10 times over within seconds. During his morning routine, we see people roll out the red carpet, build a brand new entrance to his throne room, and there's even a guy who personally carries him up to his throne. Though I'm gonna be honest here, that guy probably should have been fired. I mean, he almost freaking drops him right here. Movie could have been over in like 2 minutes.
Lacking in refinements.
All of his royal duties, from cutting ceremonial ribbons to kissing newborns to christening ships, were all brought right to him without him ever having to leave his throne. Man, no wonder this guy thinks the world revolves around him. The universe literally defies all logic and physics just so he has to do less work. And all of this pampering and upper-class living leads to the biggest one-track mind in the universe. Seriously, I'm surprised his theme song isn't just me, because that's all that matters to him. What happens to other people? What are the consequences of my actions? Don't care, as long as I get what I want. In fact, some of the choices he makes are so selfish and poorly thought out, I'm surprised this kingdom is still standing at this point. I mean, when Kuzco summons Pacha for an insider opinion, he literally says this.
Well, I know we grow the crops that you use here at the palace. We also heard the llamas that you...
And then when Pacha asks where his people are gonna live now, he tells them,
Don't know, don't care. How's that?
ugh. Kuzco, my dude, I love water slides as much as the next guy, but maybe preserving your sole source of crops and llamas, aka food, clothing, and animal labor, should be a little bit higher on your priorities list? I mean, is starvation really worth the bathing suit wedgie? I personally say no. However, in spite of all this attitude and cruel behavior and cartoonishly insane self-absorbedness, we're shown later on that Kuzco still has humanity. It's buried in a solid gold coffin like 6 billion feet underground, yeah, but it's still there. I love that the movie presents the fact that every person has humanity, no matter how arrogant or powerful or spoiled they may be. It might take more effort to unveil the human side of certain people, but that doesn't mean the human side doesn't exist at all. And for someone as foregone as Kuzco, it takes a cross-kingdom road trip with near death at every turn for him to finally start changing his ways. Speaking of which, the journey itself is pretty well executed. Obviously, it's freaking hilarious with Pacha and Kuzco working off each other perfectly, not to mention seeing Kuzco get some much-deserved comeuppance for being a pain in the neck earlier, but the pacing of Kuzco's journey from dingus to decent guy is actually very well done, with some major standout moments in particular. I'll never forget that simple scene near the middle where Pacha gives Kuzco his coat to use as a blanket. He doesn't wake him up or even stand there and wait for him to notice, he just lays it on top of him and walks back to his fire. And Kuzco, still awake, is able to witness all of this firsthand. This is the first major turning point for Kuzco's character, and you can understand why. While Pacha's already done some nice things for Kuzco by this point, including saving his life twice, Kuzco's never really had the time to let that sink in per se. The duo are constantly plagued with near-death experiences and arguing and just general unpleasant stuff. But now, in the quiet of night, where there's no talking, no danger, just a simple act of Pacha making a sacrifice, there's nothing for him to think about but that. And you can see the wheels in his head turning as he realizes, wow, he just did it. I didn't have to snap or command him or anything. How about that? They say that the simplest acts of charity are usually the ones that mean the most to people, and the same really rings true here. Heck, during the scene the following morning, we see Kuzco do something he's never done up to this point. Say thank you. And then for a whole solid minute, there isn't even any mention of the palace or Kuzcotopia or anything. They just kind of talk, get to know each other a little better. It's the first time Kuzco takes interest in another person that isn't himself, and it's awesome. Sure, he does try to leave Pacha for dead later on during the rope bridge scene, showing that he isn't exactly a complete angel yet, but then that scene ends with Kuzco saving Pacha from falling into the canyon to his death. Another sign that he's changing for the better. Also, I don't know if this was intentional or not, but you gotta love how Kuzco's crowning moment of jerk was when he commanded that an old man be tossed out a window where he'd fall to his death, and then one of the major signs that he's getting better involves him saving a guy from falling to his death. I love it when things come full circle. But my favorite serious scene in the movie by far is Kuzco in the rain. The whole thing starts when Pacha tries to warn Kuzco about Yzma and Kronk and how they're coming to kill him. Now Kuzco still thinks that Yzma and Kronk are loyal to him, and when he hears Pacha try to demonize them, he sees it as trickery and manipulation, just another attempt to save his precious little village. Kuzco has definitely gotten better at this point, but his inability to consider anything other than himself still comes back to bite him in the butt. And it would have been so easy to tell that he was being honest. I mean, really think about this. If Pacha wanted to keep him stranded out there forever, why would he even mention Yzma and Kronk at all, let alone describe them? Someone with ulterior motives wouldn't even bring them up, or maybe they'd make up excuses of some kind. But he's directly warning him about them. But when he finds out that Pacha was telling the truth, it's already too late. Pacha's long gone, and Kuzco's on his own, leading to this scene. Now, for those who don't remember, half of this movie takes place in flashback, with Kuzco narrating the events up to this point in his usual cocky manner. But once things return to the present, we actually get Kuzco telling his narrator self to shut up and leave him alone. Obviously, this is just meant to be a silly gag where Kuzco breaks the fourth wall, but I also see it as Kuzco finally casting out the jerkish side of himself once and for all. Like, I imagine that this whole narration half of the movie is Kuzco literally playing all of the events that led him up to this point in his head and realizing what a colossal, stuck-up jerk he acts like, talks like, and thinks like. And then once it's over, he thinks, okay, this guy I used to be is just the freaking worst. No wonder everybody abandoned me. Honestly, this bit can work as either a joke or a serious moment, but I choose to see it as both, and it makes for one of my favorite parts of the movie by far. And then of course it all wraps up with that awesome climax on the palace walls, bringing back all kinds of elements from the duo's little road trip together. Kuzco apologizes to the guy he almost murdered, and finally rejects the proposal to build his summer home on Pacha's mountain. He even frames it like he's still doing it selfishly, which is adorable. This is another movie that I've got to tackle in deeper detail at some point, but as far as the jerk protagonist plot goes, this one is super well done. The journey is well paced, our main man is entertaining both before and after his change of heart, and there are several key moments that really stand out. The fact that they took a guy whose humanity was buried 6 feet under and slowly revealed it in an effective way while also being the funniest thing ever is super impressive. And Kuzco is one of the crowning elements that makes this movie a certified classic. In the end, it really is true that a perfect film begins and ends with this guy. Alright, I wanna know what chumps out there going around saying that the original Cars is a bad movie. Come on, I'm not afraid of you. Put 'em up. Let's see what you got. Whoa. Take it easy now. Let's just talk this over, okay? Yeah, I'm probably gonna die alone on this mountain, but the original Cars is a dang good movie. What most people consider a soulless, toy-centric cash grab was actually a project loaded with passion. Passion for the sport of racing, motor vehicles, and old-school Americana. Only people with a true love and affection for cars and the culture surrounding them could have been driven to make a movie like this. The racing scenes are intense, the radiator spring segments are extremely cozy and comfortable, the pacing speeds up and slows down appropriately, the characters are so charming it should be criminal, the score is fantastic, and every piece of animation from splashes of water to clouds of dust are mesmerizing to look at. Oh, and to all the people that constantly ask the question, but why are they cars? Because it's more interesting. Technically, you could make a movie about a big shot race car driver who gets taken down a peg, but this is freaking animation we're talking about here. A medium of infinite possibilities with the tools to create abstract images and concepts that can help make a story more memorable and interesting. And I, for one, think that using sentient vehicles is a pretty unique way to tell a tired old tale. I mean, which one sounds more memorable to you? A normal dude that you can see through the windshield of his race car, or a race car with a windshield that can see into your soul? I don't know about you, but I'm gonna have to pick the latter. Bottom line, Cars is an awesome franchise. Just wanted to let that out. Sorry if it took too long. There you go. But hey, I've done enough digging my own grave, so let's talk about the MC for this discussion. Lightning Mcqueen, the king of NASCAR racing, temporary blindness, and prescription butt creams. I'm sure that sounded impressive to someone out there. When you look at Kuzco and McQueen side by side, it seems like they have the exact same story. Rich guy, cast from his life, meets up with commoners, becomes nicer, el fin. But there are a few noticeable differences between the two fellas, some of which actually give Cars an advantage in my book. You've got the small things like Lightning's realization that he has no real friends despite his legions of fans. He even tries to spark up a friendly conversation with his agent at the last minute, only to be cut off and then hung up on. I always do like when jerk protagonists have little moments of humanity before their eventual turn, showing that there is a person under all that smugness that's worth saving. I understand that sometimes a scene like that doesn't make any sense, like with the Dalai Lama over here, but when it does make sense and it's done well, it's a definite plus for me. I also love that the fact that Lightning is in this situation in the first place is entirely his fault and stems from his jerky personality. Yes, it is true that Kuzco fired Yzma, but in his defense, she was taking his job and answering complaints without his okay. Even if he wasn't a jerk, he probably would have fired her anyway, leading to her wanting revenge. But Lightning was the one who refused to let Mac take a nap and broke his promise to stay up with him all night. There was no justification for doing that except that he's greedy and wanted to get to California first. And it all ended up biting him in the fender. Karma at its finest. But the biggest and most satisfying difference in my opinion is that Kuzco only had one nice guy that turned his life around, but in Lightning's case, it takes a village. Every resident of Radiator Springs that spends significant time with McQueen leaves a different lasting impression on him. Sally shows him the benefits of casually coasting through life instead of always speeding through it, and her history of the interstate and Route 66 really drives this point home. It not only shows Lightning the wonderful sights and friendly faces that people are missing when they cut through the land on the interstate, but it essentially reminds Lightning of all the good friends and once-in-a-lifetime experiences that he'll miss out on if he keeps focusing on speed and nothing else. Plus, Sally actually has experience in the fast lane and directly tells him how lonely and unhappy it is. And you gotta love how Lightning says a subtle, "yeah," before he pretends he has no idea what she's talking about, like he knows it's true. Sally's also the one to trigger one of the biggest game-changing scenes for McQueen's character. She talks to him about the importance of meaning what you say and how important trust is in a relationship. And we know that McQueen isn't always the most trustworthy, a fact we were shown earlier when he promised to stay awake with Mac, but didn't. When he promised Mater a helicopter ride, it was a sort of half-hearted promise, like a soft maybe. It's obvious that his main motivation is still getting to the race on time and winning. But after Sally lays down the facts, he realizes how much of a jerk move that was. And right before she leaves, he says something he absolutely means. Thank you.
Hey, thank you.
What did you just say?
You can tell from her suddenly backing up that this really throws Sally for a loop. Heck, he even remembers that she said the Cozy Cone was newly refurbished earlier that day. He's taking interest in someone other than himself. You see that? Genuine growth. And perfectly executed too. Meanwhile, you've got Mater, who shows McQueen what having a pure-hearted, loyal friend is like. Mater at his core is just a big rusty puppy. He's not the brightest bulb in the socket, heck that bulb probably burnt out a long time ago, but he will do anything for anyone he cares about. And this jubilation that Mater feels when he hangs out with his best friend is eventually felt by McQueen as well. It's nice to have someone to just pal around with, do stupid stuff, have funny conversations with, and even learn things from. It's nice to have true, honest friendships instead of just legions of fans. And in the same way that Sally helped Lightning with his trust issues, Mater helps Lightning with his shallowness. In the beginning of the movie, it's made extremely clear that Lightning hates rusty cars. He doesn't care what they're like as a person, it's just the surface level stuff that he focuses on. But when he becomes buddy-buddy with Mater, it doesn't even cross his mind that Mater himself is a rusty old car. Heck, Mater's the one who has to bring that fact up. This shows Lightning that getting to know someone is what really matters. Whether you're as rusty as a bucket or as shiny as a twist villain, it's what's underneath the paint job that truly matters in the end. I don't care what anyone says, Mater is best character and you can fight me on that. He's adorable, he's a puppy, he's so loyal, he's so nice, just shut up. And Doc? Well, to be honest, he steals the show whenever he's on screen, but his relationship with Lightning helps to show, among other things, just how cutthroat and unsympathetic the racing industry or any competitive scene can be. You should never dedicate your entire life to just winning and trophies and the thrill of victory, because guess what? Once you get off that winning streak or break down or get to the point where you can't race anymore, there's gonna be nothing left for you. Now, Doc obviously did have friends and a home and people who cared about him in his glory days, as we see in Cars 3, but Lightning didn't. And seeing what happened to Doc made him realize that such an event could happen to him at some point. If the big hotshot Rookie of the Year can't race anymore, they're gonna want nothing to do with him. And in Lightning's case, he's gonna have absolutely nothing to come back to at the end of the day. I gotta say, as much as I love Kuzco and Pacha, this approach where different characters hammer out different dents in McQueen's personality, all with incredible setups and payoffs, is just amazing. It's a simple story for sure, but it's probably one of the best executions of it that I've seen in a long time. Plus the fact that we get to know such a colorful and fun cast of characters at the same time is just an added bonus. The last thing I want to bring up is the pacing, which is the bow that just ties everything together. Obviously in a movie with a clear focus on slowing down and enjoying the finer things in life, the pacing would have to match that kind of tone. And I will say, this is one of the slowest animated movies I've ever seen. But not slow in a boring way, slow in a chill kind of way. Like top-down convertible drive through the country with no other cars on the road and a slight breeze in your face kind of slow. Warm lighting, slow panning shots over the scenery, slight music from the radio in the background. It's relaxing, it's comfortable, it really lets you soak in the vibes of quiet country living, and it helps to drive the point home about how slowing down can really do a person good. In fact, you want to hear one of the stupidest takes of all time? What's one of the main recurring gimmicks of Radiator Springs? The yellow traffic light is always flashing, right? And what does a yellow traffic light indicate when you're driving? You need to start slowing down.
That was such a reach.
I'll be honest, I really liked Cars before, but diving into the intricacies of the writing and the characters and whatnot just made me appreciate it a whole lot more. The setups, the payoffs, the gradual change of the protagonist, and the characters that help him get to that point, it all works so perfectly. It's a shame that Cars fell into the abyss of internet hatred just because a few popular folks dumped all over it, but I highly encourage you to check out the first movie again if you get the chance. It's got a few hundred miles on it, but it's obvious to me that it was built to last.
A black screen. They say all good analyses begin with a black screen. And apparently some mediocre ones do too.
Hey, does anyone remember the Lego movies? Besides the first one. I thought so. Yeah, the lightning in a bottle of the Lego movies really didn't last too long, did it? The first one was a titanic hit with critics, audiences, Lego fans, and non-fans alike, but then the following movies just kind of fell into that, oh yeah, I remember that being okay kind of category, and it's a real shame because some of these are actually great. Sure, the Lego Ninjago movie was pretty looking back, but the Lego Movie 2 was really entertaining, and the Lego Batman movie, which we'll be checking out in a bit, is extremely funny. It's got the same kind of charm as Into the Spider-Verse, where the story and comedy are solid on their own, and knowing the origins of the title superhero just makes the experience all the more enjoyable. It's not as amazing as the original, but let's face it, very few things are. So if you've got an evening to kill and a funny bone you don't mind breaking, I say give it a shot. Also, yes, a lot of people have compared me to Lego Robin. It's almost uncanny how similar we act and look. Just, yeah, I get it. You're right. And thank you, I guess. Alright, let's wrap up this joust of jerks with the biggest blockhead of the bunch, Will Arnett's Batman. Now, we know that Lego BM is mostly played for laughs, with even more gags per capita than the original Lego movie. But it's obvious that they still want you to take the story and the characters somewhat seriously, so we're going to judge it as such. Now, unlike Kuzco and McQueen, who were essentially molded into jerks by their fame and their upbringings, Batman's jerkiness is used more as a safety net for his own sanity. He already knows what it's like to lose loved ones, and he obviously doesn't want those feelings to manifest again, so he puts on a cruel demeanor and pushes away others, especially people he cares about, in an effort to prevent those kinds of emotions from coming back. However, this kind of approach to his problem only leads to a life of loneliness, misery, and bitterness. Ironically, his quest to prevent the greatest pain he's ever experienced only wound up causing him more pain. And I gotta give this movie credit, it does the absolute best job of showing how lonely a rich and famous lifestyle without relationships can be. The entire sequence of Batman relaxing at home after the opening fight is full of these slow-paced, casual, musicless sequences with big, bleak, and barren spaces on screen. A stark contrast to the loud, insane action scenes and public admiration moments beforehand, where there were a million things happening at once and cuts were occurring a mile a minute. It really does show that when you scrape away the fame, fortune, and inflated ego, Batman's life is just literally and metaphorically empty without people to share it with. And all of this is done with barely any dialogue. allowing you to just kind of take in the emptiness for yourself. Pretty good stuff. I also love how the movie takes the same approach as Cars, where there are multiple characters that straighten out the protag instead of just one. Heck, if you look at the 3 main side characters in both films, they all fill surprisingly similar roles. You've got the mentor/father figure who talks to the MC about the realism of his situation, the pure cinnamon roll who's fiercely loyal and shows the MC nothing but love and affection, and the female love interest who cuts the MC down to size and even gets him to be honest and sincere for a change. And all 6 of these characters get 1 or more scenes alone with the MC to really hammer things home and change their view on life. I also really appreciate that the Batman scenes are given the serious tone they deserve, with slow pacing and plenty of room to breathe, despite the movie being super bouncy and silly otherwise. I mean, look at some of these slow zoom shots with the super expressive faces taking up the whole frame. Heck, Batman doesn't even have visual pupils under his cowl, and yet I can just sense the turmoil he's going through right now. I definitely feel like the scenes in Cars have a bit more oomph and memorability to them, plus they don't need to explain character motivations verbatim, but the ones in LEGO Batman are still effective and adorable, so no complaints there. But out of all the scenes that help to reshape Batman, I think the most effective one takes place in the Phantom Zone, where Phyllis, the rainbow light brick thing, voiced by Lucy from We Bare Bears, shows Batman a clip show of all the times that he was cruel and inconsiderate to others, especially his statement that there isn't a single person that means anything to him. And even when he tries to bring up some kind of justification like, I was just trying to protect them, Phyllis sees right through him and makes it clear that the main person he was trying to protect was himself. The main thing he cares about, and has always cared about, is his own feelings getting hurt again. He wasn't evil, but he was very selfish and inconsiderate. It's a lot like Emperor's New Groove in that way. A somber scene of subtle self-reflection on how much of a jerk you've been in the past, and then immediately wanting to switch gears and make things right. It works really well. I'm honestly surprised I had as much to say about this movie's plot as I did. I know the comedy was definitely a top priority here, but the jerk protagonist story was done really well in this case. Maybe it doesn't come out as memorable as our last 2 heavy hitters, but it still has its moments. The emotional scenes are allowed to be serious without comedy getting in the way, the emptiness of Bat's old lifestyle is shown beautifully in the first act, his journey from brooder to family man was pretty well executed, and the characters that helped him get to that point were well established and adorable. I really wish this movie got as much attention as its predecessor, since it definitely deserves it, and I'm happy to throw it on anytime I want to catch a case of the Bat Fuzzies. And that is all she wrote. Or all that I wrote. So, which of these 3 handled the jerk protag trope the best? Well, I was honestly stuck on this one for longer than I thought I'd be, but in the end, the title belt for this bout has to go to the original Cars! Yeah, I'm as surprised as you are. I really thought that Emperor's New Groove was gonna clean up here, but in my heart of hearts, I just couldn't let that happen. Cars really does handle the story the best in terms of pacing, characterization, and just memorable little moments. McQueen may not have won the Piston Cup in the movie, but he does win this matchup for what it's worth. With all that said though, what do you guys think? Who do you think had the best redemption of a really jerky character? And which of these movies is your overall favorite? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for tuning in everybody, and I hope to see you all real soon.